Good evening. The time is now 6 p.m. and we'll call this June 27th special meeting to order. Item 1A calls for a welcome. I've just extended that welcome to you. 1A also calls for invocation, which I'll give this evening, followed by our pledges, district mission statement, which will be read by Trustee Moncrief, and our emergency statement, as well as the establishment of a quorum. Let's stand for a word of prayer. Lord, we're humbled by another opportunity to wake up to a day which wasn't promised to us, to give us the strength, passion, and desire to carry out the duties of DeSoto ISD. Father, be with us, that we may have clear discernment, making decisions that will benefit the students that fill our classrooms, the teachers who teach our students, and the community at large. We ask all these things in your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
DeSoto ISD will prepare each student academically and socially to be a problem solver and productive citizen for a 21st century global society.
Thank you, Trustee Moncrief. I'll now read into your hearing the emergency statement, and it reads as follows. DeSoto ISD takes the safety of our students, employees, and guests very seriously. In an emergency situation such as a fire, please exit the building using one of the marked exits unless directed otherwise. Should we experience inclement weather such as a tornado, we'll ask all guests to move quickly into the interior of the building, away from all doors and windows. We'll monitor the situation at all times and advise, as well as coordinate with local emergency responders regarding when the situation has passed. Thank you. Item 1A also calls for us to establish a quorum. We do have a quorum with 6 board members present, and so we are ready for action. Item 1B calls for us to conduct a public hearing of the 2016-2017 budget, which has been posted. So the time is now 6:02 p.m. We will open the public hearing. If there's anyone wishing to speak on the item of the budget, you might step to the podium, or you may step to the podium and address the board at this time. Seeing and hearing no one wishing to participate in the public hearing, the 2016-2017 budget for DeSoto ISD, the time is now 6:03, and we will close item 1B, which is the public hearing on the budget. And that brings us into our consent items. Item 2A calls for a resolution for school and libraries universal services, or E-rate, for 2016-2017. Board, we've had this for some time. I'm sure we've had questions and had those answered, but at this time, I'll entertain a motion from the board if there be any.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the consent items.
We have a motion by Trustee Hooper to approve as presented. Is there a second?
A second.
We have a motion by Trustee Hooper, a second by Trustee Moncrief. Any questions, comments, discussion? Trustee Daniel?
I just want a clarification. I don't know what the term E-rate means. Mr. LaBorde, can you explain that to me?
I'm actually not sure either what E-rate means. It's been around for so long. It's the federal program that supplements the E-rate eligible items. I assume it's I think it has something to do with electronic data rates. It's usually for cell phones, internet services, things like that. So I assume it has something to do with that. But I don't know what E-rate means either.
It's Miss Daniel. E-rate falls under my department, and it's just an acronym, just for what he said. There is no, the E stands for anything outside of the fact that it all falls for technology. So, yes.
Any further questions, comments, discussion? All right, seeing and hearing none, call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. And motion carries 6-0. Board, that brings us to item 3, which is our discussion items. Under 3, we have item A, which is high school security fencing. Dr. Harris.
Yes, sir, Mr. President and school board. As you know, the board had approved funding for the fencing of, I think it was $850,000. At this time, due to inflation and some of the other things that were added to the are modified for the fencing around the high school, it has significantly driven up the cost of the fence. It'd be my recommendation at this time that we table the fencing until we can get a better price for having that done.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Board, this is a discussion item, which by definition infers there will be some discussion about this subject matter. This is something that we've looked over. For those that have been on the board for a few years, we have received the recommendation from the audit that was completed now 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And so we do have those findings, and we kind of know where we stood as it relates to that in the proposal. But as you've heard from the superintendent, they have a desire to wait until the price goes down somewhat, and so or the board is willing to make modifications to what we have requested, which, if you all recall, we spoke at length about placing molds on or molded emblems on the post. Those have affected the cost, and so I don't know if you guys are prepared to speak specifics as far as what cost is allocated to what item, so the board might consider what changes we can make to move forward.
Mr. President, when the lowest bid came at $1.13 million, we just figured that we would, bring it back at a regularly scheduled board meeting with the outline cost for us to decide what we could actually cut back. And so, because this was a special meeting, I didn't expect us to go into that type of depth. And so, if it pleases you, we could definitely have it available for you at the July 25th meeting so that you all can make those types of decisions.
Very well. I think that would be beneficial so that we can all speak intelligently with the numbers in front of us. But we'll entertain it, once again, any discussion if there be any about this item. Seeing and hearing none, the board will be prepared to discuss further on the July 25th board meeting. That brings us to our item 4, which is our action items. Board, if you don't mind, I'm going to take a bit of privilege here and move item 4B and 4C ahead of 4A. Rationale, the final budget amendment relates to this year, as well as the scoreboard as far as insurance, and then the budget for the 2016-2017 is an item moving forward. So if you all allow, and there's no objection, we'll take item 4B first. Seeing and hearing none, Dr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. Board, I think, is prepared to give an overview of that final budget amendment for this year.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Harris. Mr. President, members of the board, as usual, during this time of the year, we go through our budget with a fine-tooth comb and find any areas which might possibly be over budget at the end of the year. What our auditor looks for typically is any function areas that are over budget. And while we were in really good shape as far as function areas go, I don't think we would really had any function areas over. We did have some line items, and just for cleanup purposes, we wanted to do some work on those line items and move those funds around to where they were needed. We didn't have any material increase in the budget. In fact, when I take the $850,000 out for the fencing, we will actually have an $850,000 increase to our fund balance. Everything else was zero, so money that was moved from one function or one code to another code ended up zeroing out. We cleaned up some of as we talked about during the last budget workshop when we were discussing the counseling salaries, or the counseling budget being so much lower that we had added a zero to our percentage that we were using to calculate our TRS contribution. So that one went up significantly, so we were able to utilize some of that money to move specifically into the Function 81 area to take care of some of the overages that we had experienced at the high school library, at the new Amber Terrace Design and Development Early Childhood Academy, some of those kind of things, that some of the construction things. So we were able to move some of that Function 31 money around and not affect our fund balance overall. I've provided you with two documents. One is a detail of the final budget amendments, which goes actually budget code by budget code, and the description of each one of those codes, that you can see that where the money came from and where the money went to. In Function 199, like I said, basically we ended up with $850,000 with the increase in tax revenues and the decrease overall in the budget. We increased $850,000 to our fund balance. On the Fund 511, that was really just housekeeping. It was putting a budget amendment in there to take care of the first bond refunding that we did back in July, and then for this last refunding that we did for the last bond, the $1.7 million that we just got through doing. So that was really just housekeeping. The only difference is it basically made a difference of about $10,000 overall with the increase in revenues and the decrease in the increase in revenues and the increase in expenditures made about a $13,000 change in our fund balance overall in that. And then our Fund 240, our food service, once again, more revenues than expenditures. So once again, we're adding $472,000 to our fund balance, which means that next year, of course, we'll be over on our maximum fund balance again. We'll be forced to spend another $500,000 next year, which is a great problem to have. So, but those are the basic budget amendments. The second document I gave you is just an overall, just kind of a summary of all of the detail, where you can see the original budget and then the amended budget that we had as of 6/21, and then with the proposed amendment, any changes, and the final budget with the final fund balances and expenditures and revenue totals on there. That's all I have on the final budget amendment. I'll be glad to go over it in detail, or if you have any specific questions at this time.
Thank you, Board. Before we go into questions, this is an action item under 4B, which is our final budget amendment. So I'll entertain a motion if there be any from the Board.
Mr. President, I move to approve the final budget amendment.
We have a motion by Trustee Hooper to approve as presented. Is there a second?
I second it.
We have a second by Trustee Daniel. Any discussion? Trustee Moncrief.
Mr. Laborde, I just needed one clarification that I didn't get a chance to ask you about because we were so busy talking about the other question I had. In community services, I noticed that latest addendum that you sent, the budget increased. What do you attribute that to?
That's the Eagles That Soar program.
Okay. So even with the grant that we're receiving?
This is for the 2015-16. We didn't get a grant for 15-16.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's definitely, you know, we're at a loss for words when you have to put money into the fund balance, right? But it's definitely a good thing when you're putting the money into the fund balance. I do have a question as it relates, because this is, you said, is it 500,000 or 50,000 that we have to spend out of that food?
500,000.
500,000. Do we have any projects? I know last time we had the moats
Right,
renovation.
and what we're hoping for this time is, because of the fact that we know we do have to spend 400,000, and because of the Chartwell's contract, we know we're guaranteed another 400,000 next year. What we're hopeful is that we can work together with the fire marshal and not have to sprinkle all of Meadows if we go in there, because that was our original school last year that we wanted to do, year before last, that we wanted to do, and we didn't get to do it. So we're hopeful that with the new fire marshal and the new regulations that we've discussed over some of the renovations, that we can redo the Meadows entire cafeteria and kitchen.
And that would
That would cover about probably 800,000 of it, 900,000.
Okay.
Put us in good shape.
Good. Okay. All right. Seeing and hearing no further comments or discussion.
Mr. President.
Yes,
I
sir.
would like to mention also, so $572,000, basically $573,000 that was used in the after-school program due to our ACE grant. You can look at putting that $527,000 back into the budget for next year, plus some as well.
Okay. So just for everyone to understand, so the board, when we get to that, to the budget, right, we'll understand what you're saying. Basically, this ACE grant will come into effect in next year's budget.
That's correct.
And based on what we've already, or based on what we would be voting to approve, there will be additional monies that go into the fund balance based on the grant covering the cost of the ACE program.
That is an absolutely distinct possibility. And why I say that is that majority of the Eagles Soar program is funded out of compensatory education funds, and by state mandate, we have to spend a certain percentage of what we're funded on those state compensatory education funds. So after we do this, I'll have to go back through and see that we're spending the correct percentage. And if we're short on our percentage, we will still have to put partial that back into the general fund somewhere to be used for those at-risk students. So it will be, like I say, I would guarantee a possibility, absolute possibility that could happen.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I think the board would definitely, we've had conversations, and not looking for an answer right now, right? But we've had conversations about the numbers of students that are able to participate in it. We know that we have students that are waitlisted because we don't have the ability to have all of them in the after-school program. And so if this grant assist in that in any way, once again, not looking for an answer now, not even sure if it's a possibility, right? But if there is a way to increase participation in this program for those that want to be in it, then we'd definitely be interested in having that conversation.
Well, certainly, absolutely. If we can use that, even if we don't hit the compensatory funds, we'll certainly have additional funding that can be put into that program. So we will definitely, one way or the other, for sure, have additional funding.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And thank you for pointing that out, Dr. Harris. We have definitely gotten pretty good at receiving grants. So that's definitely something to be proud of. Seeing and hearing no further comments, questions, or discussion, we have a motion by Trustee Hooper and a second by Trustee Daniel to approve as presented. And I'll call the question at this time. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 6-0. Board, that brings us to item 4C, which is high school stadium video display and scoreboard replacement, as well as campus marquees. Dr. Harris.
So just a little background on this as well. So the current video display scoreboard was purchased by Daktronics in 1997. In May of 2016, storm damaged the system and the scoreboard structure. Administrators and athletic director have been in contact with representatives from Daktronics evaluating the benefits of repair versus replacement. Due to the age and limitation of the current system, a new system will give the district a much superior product and many more years of service, starting in the fall. DeSoto High School will put a student training program in place for students to run the new display, adding a learning environment to technology, communication, and athletics are revamping the marketing strategy to maximize revenues from area advertisers. In addition, campus and district marquees are in need of software upgrades to be compatible with new computer systems and provide wireless access. Several boards also need replacement of burned-out LED panels. The costs and description of the high school statement LED video display, which you guys have in your possession. Completely new control and production system and installations attached is a cost of $411,000. A second quote for software upgrades and repair to campus and district marquees are also attached. Cost is $16,000, making a total cost of $427,000. The purchase meets all bidding requirements via buy board contract number 423-13. All purchase costs for these will be paid from the 2016-17 general operating fund balance. The recommendations approve the high school stadium video display and scoreboard replacement, repair, and upgrade to campus marquees at a cost of $427,000.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Board, you've heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Entertain a motion if there be any from the board.
Yes.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the recommendation of the superintendent and approve the high school video display as well as scoreboard replacement and the subsequent repairs in the recommendation.
We have a motion by Trustee Hooper, second by Trustee Hall. Any comments, questions, discussion?
Real quick, and I know that the we had discussed a portion of it being subsidized with insurance. However, I know that just the life that's probably a very minimal amount because of the age and all of that of this particular scoreboard. Is there
a deductible?
Right, we filed the insurance claim. We haven't received any indication as far as an adjustment or what it would be. So we don't know if the deductible will even cover what the scoreboard is worth at this point. But we have filed the insurance claim on it.
Yeah, I know it's not going to be much, whatever it is. But I just wanted to know if we had received that adjustment amount yet.
Thank you, Trustee Hooper.
That's right. We will have a very extensive marketing campaign. This scoreboard will give us a lot more capabilities as far as marketing goes. And so I think we'll be able to offset quite a bit of the cost also just through the marketing campaign that we'll have for this particular score. It will be wider because they're taking out the panels on the side, and also it has a display on the bottom where we can do a lot more marketing for that as well.
And so you might talk to the board, and consequently the community, right, that's, I'm sure, listening, watching, when you talk about $427,000 for a scoreboard, right, I think people's ears perk up. So you might tell us, when you say additional revenues, just for us to understand, what function would those revenues be coming back to the district in? We know the mechanism, right, through advertising, but as far as hitting the actual budget or district funds, is that a function of the Booster Club? Is that a function of, so you see, those are questions.
Right. No, it's just straight up revenue for the district, just a miscellaneous operating revenue for marketing campaign.
And so the board might and the community might see these under the athletic function. Is that correct? Or which function?
Which function would the revenue under revenue?
It would just be blanket revenue.
Right.
No function.
Which is not in the budget at this time. So it would be additional revenue. It's just
very well
straight revenue.
Very well. And one of the things, obviously, us having this scoreboard since '97. I know Waxahachie, they made news recently when they're doing a new scoreboard, which is actually the same size as ours, but they are spending $500,000 for it. And so we've definitely got a better deal, I know, because we have some of the infrastructure already in place. But the same size and everything, they're spending more. So I thought that was odd. And their scoreboard was 2004. So we definitely keep ours for a longer amount of time. And not only did we keep ours for a longer amount of time than them, but we're replacing it for a fraction of the cost that they're paying. So thank you to the purchasing department, administrative staff for bringing that to us. All right, board, we have a motion by Trustee Hooper to approve, second by Trustee Hall. Seeing and hearing no further comments, questions, discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 6-0. Board, that's going to bring us right back up to item 4A, which is adoption of 2016-2017 budget for general operating, child nutrition, and debt service funds. Dr. Harris.
Mr. President, background information, school districts are required to adopt the 2016-17 budget on or before the last day of the 2016 fiscal year, which is June 30th. By law, the Board of Trustees must approve the budget by fund, example 199 General Operating Fund, and by function, example 11 Instruction. The attached proposed budget for general operating, child nutrition, and debt service funds are a summation of the detailed information from each of the workshops. These proposed budgets include all of the revenues and expenditures for the 2016-2017 fiscal year that staff is aware of at this time. The attached one-page proposed budget summarizes key elements of the proposed budget. Notice of public meeting to discuss budget was published in the Focus Daily News within the appropriate time frame. It is this time, Mr. President, that we recommend approve general operating, child nutrition, and debt service funds as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Board, we've had this budget for about 42 days now. We've had a couple of workshops in between, and so we heard the recommendation of the superintendent. I'll entertain a motion if there be any from the board at this time.
I move that we approve, what are we doing?
The budget.
I move that we approve the budget as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Moncrief to approve the budget as presented, second by Trustee Hooper. Any questions, comments, discussion? Seeing and hearing none, it looks like Mr. Laborde, you did a thorough job of presenting the information, that and giving us enough time to digest everything and ask any questions we might have had over the course of these 42 days. And so we'll call the question. If there's no further comments, discussion. All right. All those in favor of the motion by Trustee Moncrief and second by Trustee Hooper to approve as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? That motion carries 6-0. And just a note, in this budget that we just approved, the 5% raise for teachers. I just want to spend a couple of moments there, and I'm not naive to see the time. We're going to get out early, so y'all bear with me, right? But Duncanville ISD, their new superintendent just recommended to the board that they provide 1% increase for their staff. 1% when we are talking about 5%. The board president, this was his first night taking the presidency, his response to the superintendent was, let's make it 2%. The board kind of got behind that, and we'll see what happens over there in Duncanville as I'm sure all of us are paying attention. But the result of them doing a 2% increase would be they would be putting themselves in a deficit budget to start the year, right? So they would be pulling out of the fund balance to cover that additional 1%. And so that's just a testament to what a district can do when you have an intentional plan and you stick to the plan and execute it year after year after year. And so the plan that was put in place 4 years ago has brought us to this point today where we can look out and see other districts that are not able to jump up to where we are. And they're sitting, scratching, trying to pull and figure out how to do exactly what we're doing here in DeSoto ISD. And so that's a testament to Mr. Bobby Laborde for working with the numbers as well as listening to the board, listening to the community. So thank you for that. And thank you, Dr. Harris, for working with Ms. Laborde and you and your administrative staff, Mr. Wooten included, for setting the trajectory based on the board's vision, right, and based on what we want to see accomplished for our community, for our students, as we deserve so much here in DeSoto, and we pride ourselves on putting our employees, as well as everyone that calls DeSoto ISD home, in the best situation possible. So thank you for all that you do. Board, we can be proud of this budget. I believe this is our fourth consecutive balanced budget, if not fifth. Fourth, yeah. So it's definitely something to be proud of. You guys don't hear it enough because I'm sure we'll be right on you next week. I'm sure tomorrow you'll get some more emails. But thank you so much for everything that you've done. Tonight, you guys are rock stars, right? So thank you for that. Tonight. Emphasis on tonight, right? Everyone's held accountable. All right. So that brings us to item 4D, which is personnel recommendations. Dr. Harris. And do you want to, yeah, we can go to executive session on this.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. All right, now time is now 6:30, and we're going to move into executive session under 551.074, personnel matters. And we will return with any decision if there be any. All right, the time is now 7 p.m. and we are returning from executive session. We've been in executive session under 551.074, personnel matters. So at this time, that brings us to item 4D, which is personnel recommendations. Before we get to personnel recommendations, before Dr. Harris, you give those, I want to acknowledge for the record, Mr. Gant has arrived, Trustee Gant, and I want to acknowledge that because one flight was canceled. As you all know, he flies in for board meetings and then flies right back out for work. And so we definitely want to appreciate him for joining us on tonight and still making it a priority, even though the flight was canceled, to be here with us to conduct the business of DeSoto ISD. And so with that being said, Dr. Harris, personnel recommendations.
Yes, Mr. President, Board, we have a couple of recommendations for you tonight in our special ed department. And I do see that we have some special education representatives here in the audience, so I'm sure they're waiting to see what's going to happen here. Our first recommendation is Mr. Troy Keller is an educator with over 10 years of experience supporting students with disabilities. Troy brings to DeSoto a diverse track record of supporting students in urban and rural districts, including Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia. While working as a special education teacher, Mr. Keller went on to obtain his master's in education with a specialization in special education and applied behavior analysis through Texas State University of San Marcos. In addition to being a special education leader, he is also a behavior analyst. It is Mr. Keller's passion to support students with disabilities in order for them to make academic and functional gains. It's my pleasure, Board, to recommend Troy Keller for the position of special education behavior supervisor. Okay. You want to take them all together, both together? Is that correct? Okay, excellent. Next, for the position of Special Education Director, we have Ms. Aquita Hickman, is a native of Marietta, Arkansas, which I hear is really big. She holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in Special Education from the University of Central Arkansas. Later, she pursued further studies in education and received a Master's of Education in Organization and Administration from Dallas Baptist University. She is near completion of her doctorate degree from Tarleton State University in Education Leadership and Policy Studies with an emphasis in special education. Additional to her Texas Special Education Teacher, Education Diagnostician, Principal Certification, she holds an Autism Specialist Certification from the International Board of Credentialing and Continuing Education Standard, and has fulfilled state requirements to be a facilitator at the local and state level. Hickman has served in numerous educational capacities over her career as an educator. Most recently, she served the Crawley Independent School District as an elementary special education coordinator. She has previous experience as a special education behavior interventionist class teacher, special education resource teacher, reading teacher, educational diagnostician, and campus administrator. Hickman has experience in crisis management for ARD committees and a history of successful restoring parent and district relationships. She has a special interest in making sure that children with disabilities have the same magical experiences that children without disabilities experience at school. It is my pleasure, Mr. President and Board, of recommending Mr. Aquita Hickman for the position of Special Education Director.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the personnel recommendations of the superintendent.
Mr. President, if I may ask if we would reconsider that motion and vote on each one separately.
Thank you. We do have a motion to approve collectively. If I'm not mistaken, we really technically just need a vote on one, which is the director. And so we will consider that to Trustee Gant's point. And Trustee Hooper, if you don't mind, if you would amend your motion.
So amended.
Thank you, sir. So we have a motion by Trustee Hooper to approve the personnel recommendation of director. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Hooper, a second by Trustee Gant. Call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 7-0. So congratulations to both individuals for joining us. Definitely very impressive resumes and credentials and speaking with you all. We look forward to welcoming you into the DeSoto ISD family as we expect to hear great things out of your departments or department as you will benefit students every day.
So I know we took, are we going to go ahead and take, since we did split them up, because it doesn't look strange?
Sure. For the optics of it.
Right.
For the optics of it. We will, if there be another motion from the board in
I
a
move
second.
that we accept the recommendation of Mr. Troy Keller for the position aforementioned.
We have a motion by Trustee Moncrief. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Hooper. We want to make sure that there's no discrimination and that we are equal in the opportunity to vote. Is there a question? Okay.
No.
I'll call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 7-0. Congratulations to both of you once again. All right. Having no further action. Once again, board, this was a special called meeting. So the next meeting in July, on the 25th, we will have board comments as well as comments from the public. And so the time is now 7:06, and we'll call this meeting adjourned.